everyone. Welcome to the Rotary Club of Des Moines. I'm President Matt Busick. We have many guests with us today, 8 in total. Please stand as I call your name. First up is Lori Applegate. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Good. Great. Welcome. Lori is here with us in Business Development at the Waldinger Corporation, guest of Susan Judkins-Johnston. David Ginger, an attorney at Bell & McCormick Law Firm, is here as a guest of Carter Smith. Welcome. Max Hoxie is here, also a guest of Carter Smith and part of Baton Global's team, so welcome. Alex Lynch of the Greater Des Moines Partnership and also president of Pivotal Business Partners, if I have that correct. Guest of Becky Greenwald. Welcome, Alex. Larry James, attorney, conveyance law, guest of Kyle McCormick. Good to see you, Kyle, and welcome. Chris Janis, attorney at Denton's Davis Brown, guest of Kevin Kassier. And Angie, now I'm going to get this right, I hope, Fonka, is that right? Fonku. Oh, I'm so sorry about that. But boy, and it's even, I even have the phonetical thing here and I got that wrong, so I'm sorry, Angie. Here, president of Sidekick Development, guest of Josh Brady. And finally, Joyce Wheeler. Joyce Wheeler, pharmacist, Waukee Rotary Club member, and wife of Todd Wheeler. Welcome, everybody. It is absolutely fantastic to have so many guests. Jake, you're going to be, you got a big heavy load, yeah. As a reminder, we have our tumblers back on the tables. We ask members who don't have a green dollar sign on their badge to contribute a suggested $3 in cash. And even if you do have the dollar sign, please be generous. This supports our foundation. And as you know, the foundation is one of the biggest ways in which we're able to do the work that we do as Rotary Club of Des Moines. Thank you to Randy Worth and Hal Chase, who have signed up to help collect tumblers after the meeting. I think that was Katie's reminder that you need to stick around after. Where in the world is Matt is on hiatus today, so that we can thank President-elect Becky Greenwald for a fabulous February fling last Friday. That is almost as bad as the Rotary Rosie Band. There was a scavenger hunt to find gnomes, rotary wheels, and flat mats in the Botanical Garden. Congratulations to Eric Dickinson, who was the winner of our $25 trellis card for the scavenger hunt. So yeah, we had a great turnout, and Becky, it was fantastic. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. It was great.
Now, please welcome Ashley to our podium. She will deliver the moment of inspiration, lead us in the pledge and four-way test, and then she will be followed by Doug to introduce our guest.
Thanks, Matt. First time speaker, long time member. Today I'd like to share a little bit about passion. Passion is more than a feeling. It's an internal force. Passion is what drives us forward. It is what pushes us past our perceived limits and moves us to live the lives that we want to our fullest potential. Passion for community, passion for growth, both in business and in our personal lives, is what unites us here today. We share many values as Rotarians. We share many passions as members of this prestigious club. As we go about our day today, I encourage every one of you to reflect on what your passions are. What drives you? How can you use that to fuel positive change in our community and in the world? Harriet Tubman was a woman of passion, a driver of change, and is quoted by saying, "Every great dream begins with a dreamer. Always remember, you have within you the strength, the patience, and the passion to reach for the stars and change the world." Now the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The four-way test.
Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
And greet your neighbors. Hi, Jordan.
Good job, buddy. Always good to see you, Steve.
How are you? I'm here.
All right, I'm Doug Saltzgaber, past president. No applause, all right. I first met our speaker today about 17 years ago in a minimum security prison. And I finally convinced him he needed to turn his life around and do something worthwhile. So Jake Christensen founded Christensen Development. How'd you come up with that name? It's pretty good. In 2003, with a passion for urban development. While the Christensen Development team may be small, it has accomplished big things, completing nearly $475 million in projects across Iowa and Nebraska, and now in South Dakota, because the weather in Des Moines was just not bad enough. Some of Jake's projects include the City Block. It's a block over in East Village. It was a Christensen Development collaboration. This 7-year, $90 million multi-phase development consists of 2-block area in the center of the East Village. This includes a 6-story mixed-use building and a 540-stall parking ramp. West Elm anchors the first floor with 98 apartments above it. Phase 2 was a 4-story mass timber building, which is home to Clyde's Fine Dining. The final phase will be a 6-story mixed-use building. A few of Jake's smaller projects include Jackson Crossing Apartments, $40 million, 244-unit apartment complex. Renovation of the Dilly Building, which happens to contain the Iowa Tap Room. 317 East Court, which contains Peachtree Brewing. 322 East Court, which contains 1717 Brewing. Oh, well, starting to see a pattern here. Need to stay on the right course here. Alongside his development work, Jake is passionate about volunteering and community involvement. He will be the incoming chair soon of the Des Moines Airport Authority, the Greater Des Moines Partnership Executive Committee, member of the Downtown Community Alliance, Downtown Vision co-chair, Greater Des Moines Water Trails Advisory Committee. He has been nominated and received the Commercial Real Estate Professional of the Year Award, was a member of the 2005 Greater Des Moines Leadership Class, the 2005 40 Under 40 honoree, and was named the Des Moines Community Champion by Greater Des Moines Partnership and the Des Moines Business Record in 2015. Well, I'm glad you turned your life around, Jake. So please, let's welcome Jake Christensen.
I wasn't quite sure what to expect when Doug was the one who was going to introduce me, but that is about what I expected. So thank you. Well, this is quite a room of impressive people. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. I thought I would start by sharing a few remarks on how downtown has changed in the last 20 years. I think we easily forget how far we've come as a community, so we're going to talk a little bit about that. Share a couple of updates on projects that Christensen Development is currently working on in downtown. As Doug mentioned, I was one of the co-chairs of the vision plan. I'll talk a little bit about that. It was recently approved by the city council, and so that visioning plan will be part of our collective future. And then lastly, a quick update on the airport, since when you drive by, we've got a big mess down there. So we'll go through that and then open up for some questions. So, as Doug mentioned, my company will turn 20 years old this year, so we've had the honor of being part of what's happened downtown. What has happened in the last 20 years? I think it's pretty impactful, and someone. Is that better? Yeah. A significant number of people have pulled on the collective road to make downtown better over the last 20 plus years and prior. There certainly was very important work prior, but we'll focus on the last 20. When I moved to Des Moines 25 years ago, downtown was roughly described as the area between 31st Street on the west, the Capitol on the east, 235 and the rivers as the boundary defining it, and it was really just a large semi-nebulous area. The top 20 restaurant list was predominantly suburban locations. A handful of those were even chain restaurants. Fast forward to today, downtown is a collection of sub-neighborhoods that are beginning to materialize within what we call our downtown. And that was a very natural progression for an urban environment to start to have little pockets. So a great example is Manhattan. How many neighborhoods can you list in Manhattan? We're never going to be Manhattan, but our downtown really is starting to evolve into a more mature urban neighborhood. Some of the early projects that kicked off and got us to the point where we are now included adaptive reuse and historic renovation, and then shortly following that, some mixed-use development and infill development. So we'll talk a little bit more about what that means for our city. Hopefully you can remember how far we've come, but the image on the left is Luca. That's what the East Village looked like when I moved here 25 years ago. There was an Army surplus store, Antlers, and Olympic Flame, to their credit, is still there, but Antlers was one of the other limited dining options. So we've obviously come a long way, but I think it's good context to remember just how far. Here's another image. This is where Bar Nico recently opened, but that's what it looked like prior. So some of those early projects then led to an increase in momentum. These buildings that are on the slide, I think, are incredibly impactful for a number of reasons. A couple of those reasons are the obvious. All of these buildings have been converted in a historic adaptive reuse to more productive and engaging parts of our downtown. But the other reason is they were all predominantly functionally obsolete office buildings, or in the case of Yonkers, a retail facility that was no longer viable. So by converting all of these buildings, the development community removed substandard office space that was not desirable under the new open office floor plan, and allowed for a significant number of new uses to be populated. So quickly I'll run through them. Equitable of Iowa was converted into retail, office, and housing. My partners and I converted the Liberty Building into retail, office, a hotel, a Hyatt Place, and housing. Pardon me. Below that is the Randolph Hotel, which was, I believe, the fire department deemed the scariest building in Des Moines, and has been converted into a high-quality housing option on Court Avenue. Next building is the Edna M. Griffin Building with retail and housing, a little bit of office. And then lastly, I mentioned the Yonkers building. Obviously, retail has changed all over the country, but specifically downtown, our skywalks and the large retail operations are having to adapt, and so now Wilkins, as it's called, is retail housing and still houses the tea room. But those were impactful for downtown, but we're running out of historic buildings. So Doug mentioned that we co-developed Jackson Crossing. Angie Fonku, for those of you who need the correct pronunciation of her name, she and I worked with Jim on creating a 3.2 acre site into 240 units. This is what we call infill development. We build new buildings within the existing grid and infrastructure within downtown. The buildings on the left were developed by Hubble. The Bridge District, Velocity is the top image. This is a great place to be able to give a speech on downtown, right there. The Bridge District is everything south of the Botanical Center and north of what we call the East Village. So infill former industrial uses into great housing options. And then on the lower left-hand part of the slide is what they call the link. We're going to talk a little bit, or I'm going to talk a little bit about the Stadium District and some of the things that are occurring south of Martin Luther King. This apartment project is adjacent to those uses south of Martin Luther King. But as we run out of historic buildings, new construction in either mixed use or exclusively housing will continue to be a big part of our development process. So certainly a number of placemaking projects have occurred in downtown in the last 20 years and prior. About 20 years ago, Vision Iowa was an impactful project that created some of the more notable placemaking projects that you see. Might take a minute and define placemaking. I actually looked it up and there's like 10 different things that it's defined as. The simple one is creating a place where people actually want to be. And so placemaking projects are all over our downtown. Vision Iowa helped do the Science Center, Wells Fargo Arena, Principal Riverwalk, and the World Food Prize, to name a few. And the next round of placemaking projects are what I'm going to talk about, but I'm going to do this laser thing. Here we go. This image is the EMC Park on Walnut. You know, between the Yonkers fire and construction, Walnut has been a tough corridor to even get through, let alone have redevelopment occur on. But EMC is leading the charge to create a wonderful amenity to that part of our city. That'll complete this year. Lords and Skate Park obviously was completed recently, but is a significant activity center on that part of the river and adjacent to the water trails that I'm going to talk about here in a second. Water trails is got an image here, but the Center Street water trails node will occur right in this image adjacent to the Lords and Skate Park. Talked about the EMC Park. The bottom image is the Pro Iowa Soccer Stadium, and I'll talk a little more about that. So the goal of all of the development that the collective development community is doing, along with the placemaking projects that, led by other organizations, is to have these components connect to each other. You know, nobody complains about walking up and down Michigan Avenue until, you know, about 10 o'clock that night when they realize that they walked 10 miles. But having a walkable city and an engaging city where the cool parts, for lack of a better descriptor, are more connected is a huge part of what these initiatives do, along with bringing more people. So the first node of the Icon Water Trails, the first node of the downtown part of the water trails, there are three. The bottom image is the Scott Avenue Bridge node. That construction will start this spring. It had a delay due to some cost overruns, but it is scheduled to start this spring. Image on the top is adjacent to the Lords and Skate Park and is at the Center Street Bridge, and the third node is closer to Fleur Drive on the river. We're particularly excited about the first node, not only because it's the start of the Icon Water Trails, but we're going to talk a little bit more about this little gray area here in a minute. It will be the future home of Single Speed Brewery and Restaurant. But it goes to those adjacencies that I mentioned. Pro Iowa Soccer Stadium and Global Plaza. This is like another one of those initiatives. It's got multiple layers of positives. It will be located on the former Dyko Superfund site. And as citizens of the Metro, we all drove by the Dyko site and tried to ignore it, but anytime you had somebody new in the car, they typically would say, what in the world is that? And it's wonderful even that that building has just been torn down, but the replacement of that super fun site with an active use like the Pro Iowa Soccer Stadium and Global Plaza is just a double win. Obviously, the soccer stadium will bring a ton of people for the games and the events, but the Global Plaza will be a home for all of the, not all, but many of the festivals and things that close down the Gateway Park. That has negative implications to traffic flow and most notably to some of the businesses that have chosen to put their retail establishments in those areas. So by creating a home essentially for those festivals, it should elevate both situations. And Kraus Group is responsible for the Pro Iowa Soccer Stadium. They also recently completed another large-scale project, which is the former Crescent Chevrolet being converted into the Big Grove, which has been a great addition to Ingersoll. One of the other large initiatives that you've heard a little bit about, but if you haven't driven by recently, I would welcome you to take a look. The Market District is defined as everything east of the river, west of the Capitol, south of Court, and north of Martin Luther King. It's approximately 120 acres being led by Jim County and his partners. But this transformational project is removing the public works facility buildings that the city of Des Moines occupied and basically filled with snow plows, and will replace it with 10 to 15 years of development opportunities for all developers to propose and institute projects within that district. But and there'll be a combination of housing, retail, office, and most likely some hotel. But in my opinion, this is truly just a great extension of the East Village. We have a significant amount of success in the East Village, obviously, and this is a natural progression to allow that to continue. And the streets are going in, and the buildings are literally coming down as we speak. So take a peek if you haven't recently. But this is going to be a big change. Now I thought I'd take a few minutes and share just a few of the projects that Christensen Development is working on within downtown. I will talk a little bit more about it, and I touched on it. This is one of the early hand sketches of the single speed, so a little glimpse into the sausage making of real estate development. But it all starts, you know, napkin math and napkin sketches are part of it. First building I'm going to talk about is a recently completed building at 217 East 2nd. It is directly east of the federal courthouse annex. None of you will probably admit to having ever frequented any of the businesses that used to exist in that building, but it had a number of nightclubs over its storied history. Its original use was a factory. They manufactured machine gun parts within that were utilized in World War II. But the image on the right is partway through the renovation. It's a 24,000 square foot historic factory that did convert to Class A office space for ISG Engineering and Architecture. This is their Des Moines headquarters. They were in 2 different locations. We were able to create a significant improvement over the slide on the left. I wish that there was some way to convey the sour, rotten beer smell that went along with that image, but truly transformational. ISG's employee engagement, recruitment has all seen significant improvements since they moved into this building. Single speed. We're pretty excited about this one. Single Speed is a great group of people from Waterloo. They converted the old Wonder Bread building in Waterloo and have a full-service restaurant, coffee shop, and brewery. And I'm sure you've seen their beers in the grocery stores in the metro. So they've got a great following. But to go with their following, they're just solid human beings. And so we showed them a number of different buildings and a number of different locations within downtown in those little sub-neighborhoods. And it was a little bit like Goldilocks. When I finally showed them this one, they were like, this is just right. They loved the adjacency to the bike trail, the water trails, the river, and the view of downtown from literally the parking lot is spectacular. So they will open this summer in time for RAGBRAI, and I think they're just gonna be a great addition to the options in our city. Now this one, Angie and Doug have both spent a significant amount of time working on. This is a former Howard Johnson's at 25, I'm calling it Ingersoll. 25 Grand is the actual address, but this was a Howard Johnson's that in the 1980s was converted into a below average and then way below average apartment building. Some of my friends who drive by this building every day when I first started working on it didn't know it existed, even though I drove by it every day. COVID was hard on this project. We worked really hard, and COVID pushed us down. But we're in the process of interior demolition. We're going to create 81 boutique-style hotel rooms, 2 bars, and a restaurant and a pool. And this will open next summer. Your own Doug Solzgaber gets credited with the name Molo. The attorneys would not let us use Hojo. So this is loosely modeled after a similar project in Old Scottsdale called the Valley Ho. And so Motor Lodge, as Doug described it, stands for Motor Lodge, and Molo truncated is how we have Molo. And it's a great name, so who knew Doug was so crazy? I'm particularly excited about this part of the project. It's where you used to check in. We're gonna make it a cocktail bar, and those orange tiles are actually underneath the gross brown paint, and so that's one of the first things that you'll notice probably. Howard Johnson's actually shined light on them so that it was like a beacon, and we're gonna do our best to bring that back. Next, I had the honor of serving as one of the co-chairs for the vision plan. It got renamed to something I truly struggle to say, but Downtown DSM Future Forward. But it really is how to set a goal-setting exercise for our community. Our community has a great history of setting goals and attaining them, and setting new goals and doing them again. This is another one of those initiatives. Angela Connolly, Mayor County, and Catherine Cooner and myself were the co-chairs. It's an 18-month effort. The goals at the beginning of the effort were to make sure that downtown continued to be welcoming and to improve on that it was inclusive, that it was pro-development, and that we were able to encourage our citizens to be active downtown 12 months out of the year instead of 7 or 8, and then to improve the connections to our adjacent neighborhoods. So over the course of the 18 months, 6 initiatives came from that. I won't go through in detail at all, but the green ring is meant to be a connection between the Meredith Trail, Principal River Walk, and then continuing the loop and connecting it to down Grand and Locust for citizens to go engage with nature. Skywalks, I don't really have to say too much about reimagining the skywalks. If you've been in them recently, they need some TLC. I mentioned that the retail environment has changed. The days of the skywalks being filled with retail and restaurants are behind us, but they are still a very important connection to the living environment and working environment that we have in the core. So this initiative is to look at options for reinvigorating them, places for art, pop-up locations for trial or incubator type retail uses, but at a minimum, improved safety and wayfinding and cleanliness is step 1. The inner circle, this is also a great place to see what the inner circle means. We're in the core, we're in the heart of the tall buildings. We have a ring of parking lots that kind of encircle that and create a gap between the sub-neighborhoods. And so infill development within that group, that inner circle is important. Touched on the stadium district. The stadium is important and the plaza is important, but the additional development opportunities that exist around the stadium is going to be a continued initiative over the coming years. I believe the last 2, connected corridors and stronger neighborhoods, go hand in hand. Ingersoll is a really good example of how when you have a corridor that's connected to the CBD, both are better. And I think that we have several other corridors that can strengthen not only the adjacent neighborhoods, but strengthen downtown. 6th Avenue, Southwest 9th are a couple that easily come to mind. But that's what those 2 initiatives are intended to work on. These images are some of the artist renditions of what these visions might entail. At the end of the day, they will look different than this, but it gives you a flavor of how people are setting big dreams for our city. Then lastly, I'm gonna do one at a time. Better hustle. So if you've driven by the airport lately, we've got a lot going on. I've had the honor of being on the airport authority. It's arguably one of the most complex development projects that I've ever been able to sit and watch transpire. What the public doesn't realize is that we started the terminal project probably 6 years ago. There's approximately 17 enabling projects that allow us to actually start the terminal. And now what you see when you drive down Fleur is the land side versions of those enabling projects, but we've been doing enabling projects on the air side for several years. So all the dirt moving around is one of the key enabling projects. At the bottom of this image is Fleur Drive for orientation, and north is at the right-hand side of the page. The new terminal, which is the darker gray, will be located where Signature Flight Support currently sits. Those are the kind of gray, tan metal buildings that are to your right as you approach the terminal currently. So the goal will be to build the new terminal. In real estate development, we don't have to keep other people open very often while we're building the new, and at the airport, we have to keep everything operational, and it is an extreme challenge. And so building the new terminal close, but not too close, is the key part of that. This is what you see under construction when you go down Fleur. This is referred to as the portal, and then this new parking ramp will break ground this spring. It's an 1,100 stall parking ramp that will connect directly to the other two parking ramps. This portal and this road construction will allow the traveling public to make a choice, either to continue to the new terminal or to make continued in the interim connect to where the existing terminal is, or to choose to enter into the parking system. There's another vantage point. So this ramp will sit directly north of the existing two, and this sky bridge will connect to the new terminal. This is where the portal is from my prior image. So as you enter the new south entrance, it'll also allow people who are not as familiar with the airport as probably many of us are, more time to figure out what they want to do. And so there's a lot of benefits to that, but we are at capacity. We've got approximately 3 million people going through the airport, and the airport was designed for less than that. So when you look at a stoplight graph, every single one of them is in the red. So for the airport to be able to offer the airlines opportunities to increase service options for our community, we need more room. And so the airport authority is working diligently to make that happen. I'm sure Kevin Foley will come and give a better description than me, but I thought I'd take the chance to share a little bit. The biggest goal we have is to increase capacity and improve the traveling experience for the public. These are some of the other goals. And then lastly, the ability to expand the new terminal to meet the next round of needs of our community after this terminal is built. We will likely start construction in approximately 2026. Hopefully before that. We're still a little short, so if you're friends with the governor, please put in a good word. But we're making real headway, and proud to be a part of it. With that, I'm happy to open up for any questions, and really have enjoyed being here, so thank you.
Jake, is that new terminal, is that totally going to be all of the airline traffic, or the old terminal is going to be utilized also to take care of capacity? In other words, is there a reuse of the old terminal area, or is that the new terminal area exclusive?
That's a great question. So the question is, will the new terminal be the exclusive air operations, or will there be some reuse of the existing terminal? I would answer that by saying initially the plan was to have the new terminal do everything. With the budget constraints and supply chain issues and construction price increases we've had, what we will construct is a brand new processor, it's called. It's basically what you experience when you go through the airport. We will utilize in the interim some of the gates. So the current terminal will be removed but we will reuse some of the gates for a period of time until that next phase of expansion. So, great question.
What will they do, just follow up, what will they do with that old space then that's sitting, I guess, to the south of the new terminal?
That allows us some additional interim parking. It also is an opportunity, you've seen hotels adjacent and connected to terminals. It provides an option for that, but frankly, it's just some additional flexible space to, we've tried to put the new terminal as close to the airway as possible and meet FAA guidelines to allow us as much flexibility in the future, because we just don't know what will happen.
Jake, would you want to mention the reuse of the baggage claim area? They might be interested to hear that.
Yeah, there's the newer part of the airport's been added onto several times. The newest portion, does actually have some reuse, and so we plan to use that for some of our office space. So we won't tear down the entire current terminal, but the vast majority of it. But we're, as you can tell, we're having to get very creative on how we deliver a new terminal with the limited dollars that we have. Yeah, Steve?
Jake, would you give us your perspective on the 515 apartment project and kind of what's your thoughts on how that fits into what's going on, and is that actually going to happen?
I'm sorry, I think my time is up. Yes. So the question is the tower that has been in the paper recently. I'm actually rooting for them. I think, though, that it is a real challenge. If you look at other cities, and frankly, it's nice to be in Des Moines because we can look at other cities who are further along in the development curve than we are. And so, while I'm rooting for them, there are some real challenges to building a building that tight with our current market conditions. And what I mean by that specifically is we compete with Waukee because you can be there in 15 or 20 minutes. So you can go build a ground up, stick-built apartment building, put really nice finishes in it, and have a high-quality apartment for about half of what per square foot that a building like that will cost to build. So at the same time, the rents are about the same, but the construction inputs are very different. There is a significant challenge to making that pencil, in my opinion. And I've heard a few things about how they're approaching it that are clicks in their favor. I just hope that they can pull all those together, because if they are successful, it'll be a win. We'll get more people living downtown. It'll raise rents for the rest of the projects and allow more projects to be viable. But it is a challenge, so they've got their work cut out for them. Yes?
You didn't mention churches at all, and there are a bunch of them in the downtown area. What do you see happening to those institutions?
The question is, what will happen with the significant number of churches that are in downtown? I'm afraid I don't have a great answer for that. I just took a 2-day road trip with my daughter, and I saw a lot on that path. I saw a significant number of closed churches, so I think there's a lot of change that's occurring in that space regardless of location. I would assume that there will likely be some consolidation, but with each new apartment building that opens downtown, it probably allows for additional participants in those religious activities. So I don't have a great answer for you, but I assume it's going to evolve like it is nationally. Josh.
Do you have any insight on the historic buildings on the river when the city moves out, the armory and the police station? What would be good potential for those two buildings?
The question was, what will take place with the existing city and federal-owned buildings that are adjacent to the river? I think the short answer is that there's a lot of opportunity for redevelopment of those buildings. They're obviously incredibly historic. The bones of them are good. The systems in most of them are troubled. But I think the city council will have their work cut out for them to review what proposals get put in front of them. It's my understanding that they will not all come out at the same time, and so the development community will have time to digest it. I think it was in the business record earlier in the last week or so that the federal courthouse will probably be the first one. It's going to come up for auction. I think it'll be kind of fun to see how that plays out. That building will be technically very difficult to execute because of the historic nature and the location of the courtrooms that are within that building. There's also a sally port and basically a fortified elevator shaft for moving prisoners. There's some unique challenges to that building, but somebody will figure it out.
What's the salary for?
Sally port's where you bring a prisoner in. They can't, if they get out of the car, they can't get out. It's part of the police operation.
Fortunately, I haven't been in one.
Yes.
How is Central Iowa's competitiveness with regard to development relative to whether it's our bigger metropolitan areas or those that we might compete with, bigger or small? Is there competitive advantages here?
I believe so. We've worked in a number of cities, and I think statistically, downtown, or excuse me, the metro is I think it was just in Jay Byers, I think, tweeted it in the last couple of days about how Des Moines is outperforming our peer cities. I think from my seat, Des Moines is big enough to propose a 32-story building, but it's also small enough to be able to get a city council member to call you back. So it's a great mix, I think, of big enough but small enough at the same time. When I moved here, I thought, I came from a town of 900, so I assumed I'd go to the grocery store and I'd never see another person I knew. Obviously, that's not the case. It's a big, small town, and it's a great place to be. And I find the development community to be a pretty good group of people who are working in the business community, supporting those projects. I think we have a real advantage. I think Omaha's far tougher to work in. I think we're doing a good job. All right. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Jake, for spending time with our club today. We thank you for sharing what I think everybody will agree was quite informative. It's fun to see both the historical change over the past 20, 25 years and where we're going. So thank you very much. As a token of our appreciation, we're going to give a book to the Des Moines Public Library in your honor. The book will become part of the Rotary Rosie Reader Van collection. That's a traveling library that's reached scores of folks across the Des Moines Metro since we gave the money to purchase it in 2020. So, as we turn our attention away from Rotary Rosie Reader Van, do you like the way that? Wondering how everybody's doing against my challenge for the new year. Remember, we all set New Year's resolutions, and one of my resolutions was to try to grow this club. And so one of the best ways to do that is to invite somebody you know who would benefit from the programming that we provide to give them an idea about what we're doing, and there are 8 of them here today, so we're very happy to have you. As you consider that, make sure that you RSVP by 9 a.m. on Wednesdays for each week's meeting. Upcoming meetings will be new member introductions. So I think everybody knows that it's been a while since we've done new member introductions. Some COVID overhang and some, frankly, disorganization. But Ann McFarland, if you could stand, I have got to give you some credit. And one of our newest members stepped up, and she's going to be coordinating our efforts next week. We're going to try to introduce as many as 10 new members. So it'll be a lot of fun if you're a member of this club. Be here next week and get to know some of the folks that we're adding. They're a dynamic group, and Ann is leading that charge. Thank you, thank you, thank you. The other thing that we're going to do is make sure that I give you a quick update on the state of the Rotary Club of Des Moines, so that will be at the tail end if we have time next week. On March 9th, we'll have Madeline Clark from the Iowa Donor Network, and on March 16th, Dr. Angela Franklin, president of the Des Moines University. So lots to see. Great to have you here today. We are adjourned.